Welcome to Messy Parenting, a Catholic conversation on marriage and family. I'm Mike Hernon.
And I'm Alicia Hernon.
And this is a podcast trying to offer some of the insights from our experiences, our successes and failures. Our disclaimer is that we're not experts, but we've been married for 21 years, have 10 children, and we've learned a thing or two.
I just want to share with you, as an older brother or sister, some of the things that we've learned.
That's right. So anyway, we have an interesting topic here today. On kind of prioritizing or organizing and ordering your life. But before that, why don't we say a prayer?
Okay, go ahead.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord God, you are a God who loves order. You're a God who has established us in this universe, in this cosmos, and you have given us a place. And Lord, I ask for you right now to bless and bring peace to us and to all those listening, Lord, in their homes, in their marriages, in their family life, that peace might reign in this world through our families. We ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Son, Holy Spirit, amen.
Well, I think a lot of times I run across women, particularly mothers.
Not literally.
Right, not literally run across them. I said particularly.
Okay.
I didn't say literally.
Just checking.
I use literally correctly.
I know. Some people don't. I'm just saying.
I know. Many people don't. I literally was crawling up the walls.
I was literally flying down the highway.
No, that is not what I said. I said particularly women.
Now they get that cleared up.
Whose lives just seem to be constantly in crisis. And I don't mean crisis like marriage crisis or like very serious crisis. I mean just like, oh, I'm so busy. Oh, my house is such a wreck. Oh, the baby blessed. And oh, the kid's that. And, you know.
One drama after another.
Exactly. And I don't mean a period of life because, I mean, many people, like when you have a new baby or something,
sure,
your life is certainly
phases,
out of
like
whack.
The survival zone, like we call it.
Exactly. Yeah. But even in the survival zone, I'm talking about a period of time like where you're in crisis for maybe like 2 or 3 months. But that, I think, is normal.
Okay.
What I think is not normal is I've known this person for 3 years, and every time I talk to them, they're in crisis.
Gotcha.
That's not healthy.
Something's not working right.
There's exactly.
You look at that and you're like, I don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong.
Yeah, and also, how can you live like that, really?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In a constant state of anxiety.
Sure.
And so a couple years ago, more than a couple years ago, probably about 10 years ago.
Give or take 10, 15 years.
It goes very fast. I came across a book by a woman named Holly Perlow. I do not know how to say her last name. It is Pierlot. Holly Perlow, called
We'll link to it on the show notes.
Yes, we will definitely link to it. And it's a book called The Mother's Rule of Life. And I found it very, very helpful, some of the principles that she laid out. And I actually, Kimberly Hahn is a friend of mine, and she did a series of talks for a group of women, and she encouraged me to do a series of talks at my parish, which I did, like I said, about 10 years ago, 9 years ago.
Yeah, it was like 12 years
a long time ago. And I'm actually giving a talk, 3 talks in the next 2 months about this exact topic. And so we thought, hey, let's share it with you. But I want to, first of all, give Holly, the credit, obviously, for the principles, but most of what I'm going to explain is my own thoughts.
Right. So it's a great. So you saw it both as a mom looking out and realizing there's a lot of other moms and things that you obviously benefited from yourself, and you've been talking about this. So
and I think I'm sure it can apply to dads as well.
Well, I don't know about that. I'll be the judge of that.
Because dads are never in crisis.
No, not a happening.
But, well, as I'm talking, I never really thought of it from a man's perspective. So as I'm doing it, you can jump in and just like when you see something that would be like, well, for dads, it would apply this way.
Sure.
Okay?
We'll see.
So,
or I'll just be sitting over here with my remote control and beer.
Okay. So here are the 7 different priorities. And when I say priorities, what's important to note is that each one builds on the other.
Okay.
If you have your bottom, the most important things out of whack, you cannot build upon the other priorities.
Sure.
So first, your first priority,
and one of the things I just remember a lot of stuff that I've read before, Stephen Covey and other things, talk about the big rocks in your life.
Well, exactly. That's exactly it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's this whole analogy. Stephen Covey's the first one that I remember reading it. Maybe others have obviously done similar analogies, but if you're trying to fill up a bucket. And if you put the small things in first, there'll be no room for the big things when you get to them.
Right.
So if you're trying to fill up a bucket with rocks and smaller rocks and pebbles and then sand, you take the big rocks in first, the smaller rocks, then the smaller and smaller. And the sand, you can sift it and it will fit into all the crevices after the big stuff is taken care of. So always look at the big stuff first.
And that is exactly my point. And so we're going to start with the big rocks first, okay?
Good.
And so the biggest rock is your prayer, or even more generally, your relationship with God.
You're as a daughter of God.
As a daughter of God, as a son of God. If you do not have that perspective, your life is not going to make sense. Raising your children, going to work every day, just feeling like you're a gerbil running in a cage, your life is not going to make sense.
Right.
If you're not grounded in your identity of, I am a daughter of God, I am a son of God. That is our reason for living. And that is why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. There's a billboard that we see at some Protestant church that has it around the area. 7 days without prayer makes one week.
Haha, W-E-A-K.
Yeah, it's better when you see it than say it, I guess. But
yes, probably.
but the reality
but it's
is,
a point. It's a good point.
And also too, when you think about, you're going to progress and build in this, but too quickly we say, oh well, I get prayer in, I go to Mass, and Mass is the font and summit of our life. This is where our life as Catholics springs forth from. But prayer needs to be. You need to be better prepared for Mass. You need to make that a priority in whatever way. It doesn't have to be hours of holy hours every day, but there needs to be substance. We've talked about prayer before,
right?
But that clearly is the first and most important thing.
And when we say prayer, what I really mean too, to keep in mind, is I'm talking about an intimate relationship with the Lord, and you have to be willing to take time for that relationship for it to grow.
Yeah.
Just like as we've had different podcasts too about husband-wife relationship and making that a priority. Well, you need to make your relationship with God a priority. And so that means it's like a series of things. There's little things every day. There's maybe once a week where you get away alone with the Lord, where you have a holy hour. Maybe once every 6 months, you go away for a longer time. Maybe it's a half a day of prayer. Exactly. Maybe it's a retreat day or a day of reflection or something like that. You just cannot, even daily Mass, honestly, if that is not giving you that feeding your intimate spiritual life, you really need more than that sometimes, because it's a conversation.
Right, and the great spiritual masters, of the Catholic Church often talk about how you come disposed to Mass based on your prayer time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how can you really? Obviously, if all you can get in is Mass, great, do it, make it happen without a hesitation. But the reality is that how disposed are you? How much silence have you found in your day in order to come more collected and to give yourself more freely and fully to the Lord? And to the reading, the liturgy of the Word, and the liturgy of the Eucharist.
And also, and the reality is too, it is a good thing to take kids to Mass, but you have to realize that that's probably not going to be a really intimate spiritual experience between you and the Lord if you're wrestling with your 3-year-old dog during Mass. Right. And I'm not saying don't bring your kids to Mass. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're going to do that, you need more than that. Right. That's like saying, hey, I have an amazing relationship with my husband, and every time I talk to him, I have 5 kids crawling all over me. Oh, yeah, we're like so intimate. And no, it does not work like that.
That's right.
You need time alone with the Lord to be totally focused on him and to listen and to hear his voice. Years ago, about 3 years ago, I was struggling getting to Mass with the kids. And Mike said to me, you know what? It's more important that you get to Mass then you get to Mass with the kids.
Right.
So if I'm struggling to get to Mass with the kids and I only wind up going once a week because it's so difficult, or I feel exhausted afterwards, if I have to choose between that or going to Mass every day by myself, and I thought that was, I chose to go to Mass every day by myself.
Wise woman.
And, it was a wise husband who told me to do that.
I was thinking you were wise following my advice.
And that's what I need. But
even in this reflects into probably all the priorities. But the reality is if we looked at our day, if we looked at our schedule, we looked at our time. Money is important. How what a person values by their money, what they spend their money on. Right. But probably even more importantly is how they spend their time. And if we looked at our schedule and we figured out what are we doing that's just leisure, what's just pure, entertainment, what's just filling it with fluff. Not that I'm saying that any of these other things aren't important,
Right.
but it's like if we can make time to watch a sitcom at the end of the day.
If you can take time to be on Facebook for a half an hour, you know what? You could have taken a half an hour to pray.
That's right. And we're not saying don't do any of those things.
But if you haven't prayed, then you shouldn't be on Facebook.
That's right. And for anybody who's trying to start a new habit, that's actually a great idea to look at what you're already doing and saying, hey, I'm still going to go on Facebook, but you know what? I'm going to cut back. I'm going to take a half hour and I'm going to say, I'm going to do a half hour less. Because oftentimes it's, I check my email 20 times in a day. Well, let's check it 10 times or whatever it might be. Whatever it might be, just to give yourself the freedom and carve out that time for real prayer. So.
Okay, so I think the prayer is the biggest rock, if you will. So I think that's appropriate that we spend the most time on that here. So anyway, so that is the big rock that you put in there. That's the foundation. Then after that, it's taking care of your person. And so when I say your person, I mean doing things like getting enough sleep, eating right, exercising. All of those things, and especially women, tend to put aside and say no to themselves. And women get burned out. Women get sick.
Yeah.
They get depressed. You look at how many women are depressed out there. That is a very real, very, very tangible problem. And I think many times it's because women have the great gift of just wanting to give themselves and give themselves, lay their lives down for their husbands and their children. But that, just so you know, that does not mean lay your life down so they can walk all over you. Not that they do it on purpose, but it just happens. And that's not what God asks of us. He says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And you should take some time to think about that. If you are not loving yourself, you cannot love your husband. If you do not have appropriate self-love and taking care of yourself, you cannot love your children.
Right.
Jesus said it. I'm not saying it. Jesus said it. He said, love others as you've loved yourself.
Right.
And I think that there is an element of self-loathing in some women.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's an austerity or whatever the right term might be among Catholics or serious Christians who look at their lives and like it's about pain and suffering and sacrifice and giving myself away, and that is true. But ultimately, you can't give that which you don't have,
Right.
and it's like in chastity, in preparing yourself for marriage and having chastity, you're trying to control and harness the power and the beauty of your sexual desires so that you can fully, truly, honestly, consciously give yourself away. But if you don't have mastery of that, then you can't give. And I think also another part of this idea of loving the person, loving who you are, is recognizing that you were created by God.
Right.
And so by not treating this great gift you have, you're actually ignoring the gift that it is from the Creator. You're actually dissing God in that.
Right.
And I'll challenge the husbands, the husbands listening to this, the spouses listening to this. You have to protect your wife
From herself.
And there are a number of times where I've gotten to a point where like, hey, this isn't going to be good for you. My wife is very generous, and she gives of herself to a lot of different causes and things and efforts, which is beautiful, and it challenges me. But there are times where I have to just say, honey, you need to hold yourself back because I think this is getting you a little too stressed out, or you're stretching yourself too thin, or, and she does this for me. Obviously, there's a corollary to this for me as well, that I'm doing too many things outside and I'm neglecting myself. Right. And or my good health or my good habits. Like for me, it would be I'm sitting up late night working on my laptop and working on work, and then I get a bad night's sleep, and I'm not ready to give myself in the next day to my work, to my children, to my vocation in life. And all of those things are what we as spouses are supposed to do for each other.
Absolutely.
Not in a nagging way, but in a way that is protecting each other.
I just remember one time Mike was working for about 1.5 years. He worked in Columbus, and we lived here in Steubenville, so he was gone like 3 days a week. And he had to get his own food, and he was going out to eat. He gained totally... 20 pounds. And he came out after 1.5 years, he was like, you know what? If I was single, I'd be dead.
I know.
It's like,
I wouldn't know how to dress myself. I wouldn't know how to eat. I'd be on the side of the road.
and it's like,
Before
okay.
I was married, I think I knew how to dress myself and eat properly.
But you were younger, so eating wasn't as difficult as it is
maybe
now.
not. But,
But anyway, the point is that we need to encourage each other to be good stewards of our bodies. And our bodies and our minds and our emotions.
right, because this isn't just obviously the body is important,
Right.
but it really truly is. In between these first two is body, mind, and spirit, right?
Yes.
And it's your emotional state of life. It's your mental. It's your
Yeah.
physical. All of those things come together because again, this is. I just keep coming back. This is all gift. What are we doing with this gift? Are we burying it? Are we abusing it? Or are we allowing God to nourish it and make it multiply?
So one thing, just to kind of put it, like where the rubber hits the road, like for us, like how does this work in our lives? Well, we get up together at 6:00 in the morning, and
When we remember.
I was going to say, this is our goal, which after we've been doing for a couple years, probably for about 4 years.
Yeah.
We get up at 6. We go and exercise together for an hour at the Y, or for a while before we joined the Y, we would just walk for an hour, and we talk as we're walking. We walk for about 30 minutes and then exercise, come home, make our coffee, have our time alone to get ourselves ready. The little kids wake up, and honestly, they watch TV. They watch TV for about an hour and a half in the morning.
I know we're awful people.
I don't think we're awful. I think that we are very balanced.
That's right.
And that gives us our time to get ourselves together,
Right.
and take care of ourselves, get ready for the day. And if I do not do my hair and get dressed appropriately at that time, I don't do it. I'm
Right.
serious. There have been times
Me
when
too.
I like,
My hair, if I don't do it, it's just over.
like if I forgot to brush my hair or was like so busy, got distracted. And then
The day is gone.
I didn't do my hair all day. And I was like, at the end of the day, I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh my gosh, I walked around like this. And because you just start going. You just have to take that time at the beginning of your day, spend a half an hour by yourself. Now, of course, the little kids come in and we like, oh, go outside or whatever. And also we're at the place in our lives. We have older kids, so that's why we can leave the house. Obviously, we're not leaving.
Right. There's teenagers here.
Right, exactly. But there was a time in our life we couldn't do that, but we did get up and pray.
And we know there are people, and again, we're just talking about the physical part, but this reflects in all the areas.
Right.
Where couples who actually take their kids sometimes and they go on a walk together. They put their kids in a
Yes.
stroller and they go out,
Right.
or whatever it might be, both physically and mentally. Are you in a book club? Are you reading something together, or are you
taking
individually?
time for friendships?
Yeah.
It's for women and men. I think so many of us do not take quality time for our friends. And I see that as something that's taking care of your person.
Right,
Because when
right,
I
it's
am with my
emotional
friends,
and relational status. Yeah.
it just revives me. It just revives me in an incredible way, whether it's a group of friends or whether it's one friend just coming over for lunch or whatever. It is really, really important that we take care of our person. So
good.
after we do that, after you're taking care of your person, then you take care of your partner. See, these are all P's. So prayer, person, partner, or taking care of your marriage. And you will note here that marriage is coming before parent. Your marriage
Right.
is the font from which your children have sprung. That is
That's right.
the foundation for your family is not your role as a mother, is not your role as a father. The foundation of your family is your role as husband and wife. And that is where your children come from.
And I know we've talked about this in other podcasts, but that really is it. I mean, if you want to
It is worth repeating.
If you want to be a great parent,
That's right.
Be an amazing spouse.
Yes.
Be an amazing spouse. Your kids will thrive because you love your spouse. I mean, there's a lot of other things that we can grow and should grow as a parent, but if you don't have this be first and foremost, and you excel at it, because that's where physically that's where your children come from. When we make love, you're making life. I mean, love and life go together. And so
And
you have
that's
to
a
begin
symbol,
with that.
like if you look at the theology of the body, that is a symbol for your entire life with your children.
That's right.
Not just that, moment of conception, but their entire lives. All of their emotional lives, everything is springing from your love. And you need to be aware of that. And yes, of course, the more children you have, it presents particular challenges and all of that. But always remember, you are never done working on your marriage.
That's right.
The day that you sit back and you're like, you know what? I haven't talked to my husband for a while, but I'm sure we're fine.
That's right.
Oh my, no. That's very bad.
Yeah.
Very bad.
Well, and just having that sense of unity. We don't do this as much, or at least often, but some of her in-laws, some of Alicia's brothers and sisters, have done kind of like a corporate family meeting where the couple goes away
once a year,
and they kind of do, what
they
a
call
company
the
would.
board meeting.
Yeah, the board meeting, kind of corporate off-site meeting, is what, kind of a business analogy. But they go away and say, what are our big aspirations for this year? What do we want to do? What really, also things that might be in conflict, things that they may have a disagreement with that. So you get out of the situation, you get out of the home, and you spend a little time investing in your relationship and what really matters, and you get refound your unity and purpose together. And again, whether that's hopefully that's being fed on a regular basis through dates.
Right.
Hopefully that is, through, even the day-to-day. I love you, serve you, all those things. Again, we've talked about this in a lot of other podcasts.
Common politeness even.
Right. But whatever it is, it's making the time so that the capacity of your coupleness, to overflow to your children and to the world. Because I really do believe, Scott Hahn quoted somebody else, but I don't remember who the person was. He said, if married couples truly lived the sacrament of marriage, within 40 years, we'd have a complete revival of Catholic culture.
That's right.
And really, everything stems from our sacrament of matrimony. It stems from our marriage, from our unitive love between us. So there is nothing more important than this.
And again, like Mike was saying before about the prayer, you know that something is a priority when you can look at your schedule and say, this is where I've spent my time on this.
Yeah.
And I would challenge each person, each spouse listening to this to think, can you say with full certainty, my spouse knows they are number one?
That's right.
My spouse knows that they are number one.
Right.
Because that should be our goal.
And
we need to keep constantly working to make sure that they know that they're number one.
And I remember I had a spiritual director one time who just said, write down your wedding vows and reflect on it. And reflect on how am I living that out on a daily basis. And I remember something as simple that we've done is, again, for us, is making sure that our children were in bed at an appropriate time. When we had little children and, for us, it was saying, we want to have time where it's just my wife and I. And so we'd put our kids to bed at 8:30 so that we could have some time where she and I, my wife and I, could just be together and not be mom and dad, but just be husband and wife. And that was essential for us. And again, we've had another opportunity where we added with just going out to exercise in the morning. We had just kind of, again, that's both physically helping each other.
Beginning and end of our day.
Yeah, beginning and ending our day. And I do that with prayer too, You begin your day with prayer and you end your day with prayer. And so it's just like those little things that I think matter and help build a proper foundation for everything else. Because if you get the big stuff in order, everything else will really fall into place as well.
And I really think, and I just want to emphasize too, that never assume and always keep looking, look at your schedule. Look at how much time are you spending alone time with your husband.
Right.
And that's really important because you really need each other.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, if your marriage is good, that you're going to be a better parent, a better friend, just a better person.
Disciple, better everything.
Right. Exactly.
And again, we've probably said this in another podcast, but I'm just going to ask the question: when's the last time you went on a honeymoon, or when you went on a getaway weekend without kids for one night, or
if it's more than a
ideally,
year, start planning now.
Right. And
turn off this podcast and
That's
start
right.
making your reservations.
You do not need to lead listeners. But and with little kids, it's really hard. Nursing children, it's really hard. And so I'm not suggesting you drop everything to do that.
But a lot of times we would go away when I was pregnant. Because I would be 7 months pregnant, not nursing anymore.
Because she was always pregnant.
I was always pregnant. 7 months pregnant or so, not nursing anymore, right before the new baby comes. It's a great time to go away. And you really, most women really need to get away at that point anyway.
Right. So it's important.
Just got to make it happen. Okay, so then after being a
prayer,
making your partner. Yes, so prayer, person, partner, then parent. And I think a lot of moms, especially one of my friends said that she feels like when you become a mom, you get this big chain around your neck and it says guilt. Because mothers always, one of the things I think women struggle with is you feel guilty. You feel guilty. Oh, I should have done a better birthday party. Oh, I'm not spending enough time with this teenager. Oh, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. Oh, this child really needs this particular homeschool curriculum, or they really should be going to this school. And we feel guilty. We look at the struggles that our kids have and we feel like it's all our fault. And that's a lie.
Right.
That is just a lie. It is not our fault. Are we perfect? Of course not. That's why we need Jesus. If we were perfect, we wouldn't need the Lord. My prayer is simply, Jesus, have mercy on me.
And my children.
That's right. And Jesus, supply for my children what I am lacking in my parenting.
That's right.
And so the Lord has to do that. Our children have needs that are so big. And then we only have our little like widow's mite to give. And the Lord is going to abundantly bless our efforts when we bring them to him.
Yes.
And so we really need to realize, I mean, for many people, some people it's a challenge, maybe it's other people it's not. But our children need to come first before anything else that we're doing outside the home.
That's right.
And when I have always either done working outside the home or serving outside the home, I'm a teacher. And so it was easy for me to do this, but I always incorporated my children into whatever I was doing. Right. So if I'm teaching music, I would have my child in the class with me. If I'm, teaching a class or whatever, I would be, in the same place that my children would be. Now, not everyone can do that, obviously. But for me, I was able to do that. But I think for anybody to realize any way that you're serving or volunteering, just have it include your children.
Right.
So they would really know that they're important to you and that you're really trying to make them a priority.
Right. And so when I would go sometimes to serve with the Sisters of Charity, I'd take our teenagers with us. And, it was a great opportunity both for me to parent with them, but also to go out and serve, something I wanted to do. And I could have it'd been more simple if I just went on my own to serve. But by bringing them along or different occasions like that where they can be included, it allowed me to kill two birds with one stone, to be a dad as well as a servant.
I remember our son Patrick, I think he was like his 14th birthday. It wasn't his birthday, sorry, it was Mike's birthday. And we're going to do a podcast on this sometime, but Mike, when we do birthdays, one of the things we do is we honor the person whose birthday it is. So we go around and say, Dad, I love you because blah, blah, blah. And I remember Patrick saying, Dad, I love you because I know that you love spending time with me. And you know what? It was just really profound. I remember I cried when he said that. But that was communicated. Yeah. And maybe Mike didn't always love spending time with Pat, But
fake it until you make it. No, I'm just kidding.
But sometimes
Pat,
that's
I love
true.
You.
We definitely love spending time with him now. He's super fun, great guy. But when we communicate that to our children through the quality of time and through the quantity of time, when we do that to them and we communicate that they are a priority, and then they really feel loved.
Yeah, I know we got to move along, but just what you just said, making those special times. We have 10 children, and to make sure each child feels that special. Like I'm going to be, set a date to go out to dinner with Maggie, and for each child, so that they have that. And it's not something I always can consistently do, but we got to, our podcast is called Messy Parenting. And I think the reason why, a subtitle.
Because we suck at certain things.
That's right. Well, I wasn't going to bring that up on the air here, but the idea that it's messy, but that's okay. Yeah. And embrace that. And just go through it, and don't give up. Though, I want to be a parent after God's own heart. And the person who was like that was David. David kept falling. He kept sinning. He kept repenting. He kept coming back. The Lord does not. What does Pope Francis say? The Lord does not get tired of forgiving us. It is us who tire of seeking forgiveness.
One little idea I want to throw out here. I know we've mentioned my brother-in-law, Andrew, before. I don't even know if he listens to this podcast, but I should tell him we talk about him all the time.
Safer
One thing that he does, this little tip, I think, which is an excellent idea. He has 8 children, and on the anniversary of that child's birthday, so say their birthday is May 8th. The date. So say that child's birthday is May 8th. Well, June 8th, July
8th of every
8th,
month.
the 8th of every month, he takes them out for a special time, even if something just really
It's a great,
quick.
easy way to remember.
It's an easy way to remember. And it's from the time he starts it when they're 3 years old. And when they're 3 years old, they get to go on their date with dad. And then he goes out with my sister, Regina, on their anniversary date. So it's the 24th of every month. They go out together. So, or maybe it's not the 24th, 22nd, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Whatever.
But we were just talking about these yesterday because they were visiting briefly. He said that once he started making it a habit when they were little, now the kids remember. Of course, the kids remember. Oh, Dad, it's the 15th. It's my, date day or whatever. And so they remind him. So anyway, that's just a little trick that I think is very
great
clever.
Idea. I totally agree with you.
Okay, so then after parent, then the next thing for moms or dads actually is...
this fits.
Actually, it fits perfectly for fathers too, is their role as provider. So for a lot of dads, sometimes it's both parents are out there working, providing for their family. Sometimes mom is the one working. Sometimes dad's the one working. But whoever is doing it, one person working, but then also taking care of the home. And this is a lot of times for moms, even if they're working or not, it's where the rubber hits the road as far as feeding and clothing and taking care of the house and all of that. And there's zillions of websites and things out there. But I just want to say that role of provider and that service that women are giving to their families is you have to use that to really sanctify yourself. And I know that we've touched on this in different ways, but just remember, like when sometimes I have that rebellious streak in me where I'm like, I just get fed up with cleaning all the time and fed up with picking up after this person and that person or whatever. But you know what? Just remember, what was Satan's cry? Satan's cry was, I will not serve. That's what he said. He said, I will not serve.
Right.
And then Mary's response was, be it done to me according to your word.
Yeah.
I will serve. And so, we have to remember that. And the whole like Mary, Martha, and the Mary Martha thing. I love Martha. I love her.
Martha ministry, baby.
And the reason I love her is because she is an example for us. If you look at the whole, like when she says, Jesus, why don't you tell Mary to get up and start helping me? She would not have had that attitude if she had spent time at the feet of Jesus. It's not that what she was doing was wrong or that it wasn't important. It's that she hadn't spent the time with the Lord and then gotten up and done everything that she has to do. And that's why she was frustrated. So that's why these priorities that we're talking about are really appropriate and a pathway to peace. Because if you have that big rock in of prayer, and if you're taking care of yourself and you have a good marriage and you know your kids are, that they know they're a priority, and then you can really serve them with a generous heart. So we're just going to try to wrap it up real quick here. And then the last thing after provider, do you want to say anything about dads working?
Just a simple idea that our work matters, and that the home is a man's castle, right? But it's our family's castle. This is the home that God has given to us, whether it's an apartment or whether it's the home that you own, and that with your wife, you're building something. And this is a place for your children to flourish, to grow. And this is the domestic church. How would we take care of a church? How would we go out of our way? And this is a place where, again, many popes have talked about it as the font of seminaries. It's the font of life of the church. These are the future marriages. These are you might be raising the next.
But we want to talk about the physical house, though.
What's that?
The physical house.
Right. But I'm just saying, yeah. So all of those things. So it matters.
It's not literally a font of the church.
True, but you know what I mean. It's a place that we're carving out our place in this. And while we're in exile, we're carving out our little garden. We're carving out our place for our children to grow,
to be safe, to be relaxed, a place of beauty. All of that. Okay, and actually, there's so much you can say about work and the sanctifying.
It is. That's a whole other
grace
topic.
of work, and actually, that would be a good podcast too. Like the whole Opus Dei attitude towards work, which is really, truly beautiful.
Right.
And
vocation and other. Well, actually, that's a good podcast. Maybe we'll work that together.
Yeah. And then the last thing is periphery, which is everything else. All volunteer things, out of family, things like that, extended family, I should say. And it's a constant balance. And I think that one of the reasons that it really is important to live an order's life is because you have gifts. You have gifts to give to the world.
Right.
And like we started out, if your life is constantly in crisis, you're never going to be able to give yourself, because by the time your kids are grown, you're going to be wiped out. You'll be totally burned out. Right. You need to be living an ordered life, so the gifts that you have, that you will be able to get to that periphery.
Right.
That you will be able to be at a place where you can bring your gifts to the world.
Yeah. One thing, I can't recall this entirely, but I know I heard a talk one time, and it was a business talk about multiplying the impact that you're going to have by a substantial amount. And what it basically did was, focus your time on the things that you're going to have the greatest return on, that are the multiplier effect, I think he called it. I think it was one of those TED Talks that I saw online. But the multiplier effect, where when you're focusing on the things that are going to have the greatest long-term impact, focusing on those more importantly than all these other things will allow you to reach more of those periphery when you invest more in it. Because your time actually gets multiplied. Like when, using the example of Andy, when he made that special time with his kid, when he invested early and created that habit, it became automated. And it became so habitual that his kids reminded him. So he no longer had to think about it. It would just happen. And then his mind was freed up to think about other things. So he knew he was taking care of that relationship. Not that it was checking off a box per se,
right,
but that it became the habit of love, that he was more disposed to that, which then gave you more time and energy and mental ability, if you will, to invest in some of the peripheries, because our world is dying. It is wounded, and it needs our love. But if our family, if it isn't prayer, person, partner, am I getting this in the right order?
Mm-hmm. Good job.
Provider, and then periphery.
Parent is in there.
Parent is somewhere, blah, 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 blah.
Parent, provider, periphery, yeah.
Okay. If we don't have those in the right order, we can't get to serving the others. And we shouldn't. If we can't physically get to taking care of our children, or we can't take care of our person.
And also, I should say, this is not like, oh, my life is in order, now I have arrived. No. This is a constant balance.
Right.
It is a constant balancing act for us. There are times when I'm like, okay, things are good. Then there's times I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, we're getting out of whack here. Or then a crisis comes up with a child, or something happens. Obviously people get sick, very seriously sick. So you need to pull back all that stuff because you need to get well. So, this is not something that we have arrived or anything like that. As you can tell from even hopefully it's part of our sharing.
Right.
But it's a constant balancing act.
Right, and something that we learned when we were at Franciscan University as students was the charism or the gift or the focus of the third order Franciscans was penance or metanoia, or as they've termed it, the ongoing conversion.
Right.
And the whole point of our lives is that God is not done with us or our children, and our life changes. And so we're going to constantly be improving, enhancing, and going deeper into our life of all those areas all the P's that you just mentioned.
Right. So there you go. Well, we went a little bit long.
Okay. And so, hey, if you like Messy Parenting, share it on Facebook. You can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.